"Take the boys' wall down." I heard the order before I understood it was about me. I was on a ladder at the far end of the west gallery of the king's house, holding a level against the top edge of my last canvas, and the man who said it stood 3 paces below with his back to me, speaking to the guard at the gallery's inner door as if the gallery itself were a room he owned and had only just remembered to tidy. "I am Pell Aldwin. I was 19 that spring, and I had painted my whole life on the backs of other men's discarded boards, with brushes I made from the hair the barber swept off his floor, in a single rented room over a tannery where the smell never left the wool of my coat. I had been promised a wall, not a corner, not a screen by the cloakroom where the rain came in. A wall 11 feet of the West Gallery's South Range, in the Royal Spring Exhibition, where the whole capital came in their best coats to see what the kingdom had made that year. I had been promised it to my face, on merit, by the very committee that hung the show, and I had ridden 2 days on a borrowed mule with my 4 paintings wrapped in sacking to claim it. And now a man in a coat that cost more than my year was telling a guard to take it down. "I beg your pardon," I said. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. I came down the ladder too fast and nearly turned my ankle on the bottom rung. "Sir, that's my wall, that's mine." The man turned. He was perhaps 50, soft in the way of men who have never once carried their own bags, with a chain of office across his chest that I did not yet know how to read. His name, I would learn, was Master Corvin Vane, and he was an under-steward of the exhibition, not the committee, not the men who had promised me, but the man who held the keys and the order of the hanging, which on the morning before the doors opened is a kind of small kingship of its own. He looked at me the way you look at a stain, and you are. Pell Aldwin, the 4 landscapes. The committee gave me the South Range. I have the letter. I had the letter folded against my heart, and I put my hand on it as if it were a shield. "The committee gave you a courtesy," Vane said. "I give you the floor. There has been a change. The South Range is wanted." He said it the way a man says the weather has changed, as a thing that simply happens that no one does. "You may have the back passage by the service stair. It is a wall. It is even 11 feet if you measure generously." He smiled at his own small joke and turned back to the guard. "Take them down and stack them by the stair. Gently, I'm told he hasn't a frame to his name, and I'd not have the house blamed for a scratch. I want to tell you that I said something brave. I didn't. I stood there with my letter against my chest, and felt the whole 2 years of nights it had taken me to earn that letter draining out through the soles of my boots. The back passage by the service stair was where they kept the spare chairs and the mops. No one walked it but the men carrying out the chamber pots. To hang there was not to be in the exhibition. It was to be removed from it and given a place to be ashamed in. "Why," I managed, "why is it wanted?" Vane was already walking. "Because Master Halloran Crewe has graciously agreed to lend the house his new triptych, and the house is grateful, and the South Range catches the morning light, and the morning light is what a Crewe deserves." He said the name the way a man drops a coin on a counter, expecting it to settle the matter with its weight. "You'll have heard of him." I had, everyone had. Halloran Crewe painted the portraits of the people who could pay for portraits, and he painted them flatteringly, and his father had paid for the academy where the committee men had trained, and his name was on a fountain in the new square. He had never in his life been told no by a man with keys. He had not even come himself. He had sent a triptych and an expectation, and the expectation had walked into the West Gallery in the person of Master Corvin Vane, and it had reached the South Range, and it had found a tannery boy on a ladder, and it had said, "Take the boys' wall down." "It was promised to me," I said to his back, "on merit." He didn't stop. "Merit," he said, as if to the room, "is a word committees use in spring. By autumn they've all forgotten it. Have it down by noon." And then he was gone, and it was just me and the guard. I had not really looked at the guard until then. He had been a fixed thing at the edge of the morning, the way the door is or the cold. Now I looked. He stood at the inner door of the west gallery in the full ceremonial dress of the king's house, the deep red wool tunic with its row of brass, the tall black bearskin, the white gloves, the line of medals over his heart, the rifle grounded by his right boot, and he had not moved through any of it. Not when Vane gave the order, not when I came down the ladder. He stood at attention with his eyes forward and his jaw level, a man made of discipline, and for a moment I hated him because I thought he was about to do it. I thought he was the hand that the order would use. I thought, of course the wall comes down, and of course it is a soldier who takes it, because that is what soldiers are for, to make the soft men's wishes into facts. I started up the ladder to take my own paintings down before he could. I would not be carried out. If I was going to the service stair, I would walk there myself. "Leave them, sir." The voice was quiet and even, and it stopped me with one boot on the rung. I looked back. The guard had not turned his head. He was still at his post, still facing the gallery, but he had spoken, and a guard of the king's house does not speak on duty unless something has gone wrong enough to require it. "He gave you an order," I said. "He gave me an order," the guard agreed. "He did not give me a lawful one." I came down off the ladder. His name was Sergeant Edrin Marsh. I would learn that too later, the way you learn the names of the people who turn out to be the hinge your whole life swung on. He had stood the West Gallery for 11 years. He had a face that gave nothing away and a voice that gave only what was needed and nothing more. And when he told me to leave my paintings on the wall, he did not say it kindly, the way you gentle a frightened animal. He said it the way you state a fact that the room had somehow failed to notice. "You don't understand," I said. "He's the under steward, he has the keys, he decides the hanging." "He decides the hanging," Marsh said. "He does not decide who is in the show. The committee decides who is in the show." "You were placed by the committee on the South Range in writing." His eyes flicked once to the letter still pressed to my chest and back to the gallery. "Were you not?" Yes, I have it here." "Then your wall is not his to give away. He may move a crew in. He may not move a placed man out to the chamber pot stair to do it. Those are two different acts, and only one of them is his." Marsh paused, and for the first time something moved in his face, not warmth exactly, but a kind of deepening, like a still pond when you finally see how far down it goes. "I have stood this gallery for 11 years, sir. I have watched a great many walls given to a great many names. I have never once been told to take a placed man down to make room for a name that did not come, did not paint better, and did not even trouble to attend. That is not a hanging. That is a theft with a chain of office on." I did not know what to say to a soldier who spoke like that, so I said the only true thing in me. "He'll have you replaced. He'll find a guard who will do it." "He may try," Marsh said, "but he will have to find one. And he will have to put the order in writing and sign it, because I will require it in writing, and a man does not always like to sign his name to a thing once he has to read it spelled out. Go and stand by your paintings, Master Aldwin. Touch nothing. Take nothing down. If anyone comes to move them, send him to me." I went and stood by my paintings. They were 4 landscapes of the country I came from. The marsh flats at low tide with the light lying flat and silver across the mud, the tannery yard in the rain, an old woman I had never named selling eels from a basket under a wall, and the one I cared about most, the one called Morning on the Cut, which was nothing but a working canal at dawn with the night soil barge going up it, and a single heron standing on the lock gate as if it owned the whole gray kingdom of the water. They were not pretty. I had not painted them to be pretty. I had painted them because no one painted the world I came from, and I thought the world I came from deserved a wall in the king's house as much as anyone's drawing room did. I stood by them and I waited, and within the hour Master Corvin Vane came back, and he had brought men. He had brought 2 porters in the house livery, with cloths and a padded handcart, and behind them, walking with the unhurried importance of a man arriving exactly when he means to, came another man I did not know, younger than Vane, sleek, in a coat of bottle green velvet, with the long, soft hands of a man who has never primed his own canvas. This, I understood without being told, was not Halloran Crew either. Crew still had not come. This was Crew's agent, a Master Sedley, sent to see his master's triptych hung in the morning light, the way you send a servant ahead to warm the bed. Vane stopped when he saw me standing by my wall with my arms folded, and he saw the guard had not moved, and his face did the thing soft faces do when a small kingship is questioned for the first time in years. It pinched. "Why are these still up?" he said, not to me, to Marsh. "Because they are placed, sir," Marsh said. "I gave you an order." "You did, sir." Marsh's eyes stayed forward. "I asked you to put it in writing. You have not. Until you do, these paintings are placed by the committee, on the South Range, in writing, and I am charged with the good order of this gallery, which includes not letting placed work be taken down on a spoken word by a man whose authority does not run to it." The porters had stopped, the handcart between them, looking from Vane to the guard the way men look when they realize the thing they were sent to lift might lift back. "My authority," Vane said, and his voice climbed, "runs to every nail in these walls." "Your authority runs to the order of the hanging," Marsh said, "and the comfort of the visitors and the keys, sir, and I have never once disputed it. It does not run to unmaking the committee's decisions after they are made. If it did, there would be no point in a committee. You would simply hang whom you pleased, and we would call it the king's taste, and it would not be the king's taste at all. It would be yours, for sale to whoever brought a triptych and a famous father." The sleek man in green Sedley laughed, a short, surprised laugh, the way you laugh when a footman says something clever. "He's quite the orator, your doorman," he said to Vane. "Does he recite at parties?" He turned to Marsh, and he put on the smooth, reasonable voice that men like him use when they want you to feel that being unreasonable would be embarrassing. "My good man, no one is harming the boy. He's being moved, not thrown out. He'll have his 11 feet by the stair. Master Crew is doing this house an enormous honor lending the triptych at all. It's never been shown. And frankly, the morning light on the South Range is wasted on." He glanced at morning on the cut, at the night soil barge and the heron, and his mouth made a small contemptuous shape, "mud and a sewage boat. Be sensible. It's the kind thing even to put him somewhere quieter. You'd not want the whole capital laughing at his eels in the best light, would you?" I felt my face burn. I had carried those eels 2 days on a mule. Marsh did not look at the painting, and he did not look at Sedley. He looked at the gallery, at his post, the way he had the whole time. "I don't make the show, sir," he said. "The committee does. I keep it. If the committee says the eels come down, the eels come down, and I'll carry them myself and stack them gentle by the stair, and I'll say nothing because that is the committee's right. But the committee has not said so. A man with keys has said so, on behalf of a man who is not here, and I am not going to let a placed painting be taken off a wall on that. Bring me the committee, or bring me the order in writing and signed, and we will see what is to be done. I will stand here until one of those things happens. I have stood here for less." Vane's color was very high now. He was not used to this. I could see, watching him, that no one had said no to him inside these walls in a very long time, and that the experience was doing something to him that frightened him a little, that he was not entirely sure anymore that he would win, and the uncertainty was making him reckless. "You insolent," he stopped himself. He turned to the porters. "You too, take them down." The porters did not move. They looked at the rifle grounded by Marsh's boot, though he had not so much as glanced at it, though his white-gloved hands were folded at his front and nowhere near it, and they looked at the medals over his heart, and they looked at the 11 years of stillness in his face, and the nearer one, an older man with gray in his side whiskers, said, very quietly, "Begging pardon, Master Vane, but I'll not put my hands on a placed painting against the gallery sergeant. It's more than my place is worth. You'll want to settle it above us, sir. That's all I'm saying." "Above us?" Vane seized on it like a railing. "Yes, quite. We'll settle it above you." He rounded on Marsh, and now there was something ugly under the soft. "You think your captain will thank you for this?" for embarrassing the house in front of Halloran Crew's agent on the morning before the doors open. You think when the Crews are displeased, and they will be displeased, it's me who suffers, or you. I will have your post for this. I will have you sent to count barrels at the river gate for the rest of your service. Last chance, Sergeant. Take them down. And there it was. The whole weight of the thing came down into that one moment, and it came down on Sergeant Edrin Marsh, who had nothing to gain by holding and everything to lose, who did not know me, who had no reason in the world to set his 11 years against a famous name except that a wall had been promised to a tannery boy on merit, and the promise was true and the order was not. He held. "Put it in writing, sir," Marsh said, "and sign it, and I will take it to my captain myself, and my captain will take it to the marshal of the house, and the marshal will take it to whomever the marshal answers to, and at every step a man will have to read your name on it and decide whether he wants to be the one who signed it under his. That is the house, sir. That is how it is built. Not so that a guard can do as he likes, so that no single man with a set of keys can quietly unmake a promise the house made in writing, and have it be no one's fault because no one signed. I will not be your no one's fault. If the wall is to come down, a man will put his name to taking it down. That is all I am holding out for, a name on a page." For a long moment no one spoke. Then Vane did the thing that frightened men with keys do when a door won't open. He went to find a bigger door. "Have it your way, Sergeant," he said, very quietly now, which was worse than the shouting. "I'll be back within the hour with the order signed and with someone whose authority even you cannot pretend to misread. And when those paintings come down, and they will come down, I will see to it that the last thing you ever stood guard over was your own dismissal." He gathered Sedley with a look. "Master Sedley, come, we'll wake the controller." They went. The porters went too, the older one giving me a small look on his way out that I could not read then but understood later. It was the look of a man who would have helped me if helping me had been his to give, and who was sorry it was not, and glad someone's it was. The handcart rattled away down the long gallery, and then it was quiet, and it was just me and Sergeant Marsh and 4 paintings on a wall that a man had just sworn to take from me within the hour. I sat down on the bottom rung of the ladder, because my legs would not hold me any more. "You shouldn't have done that," I said. "He'll do it, he'll have your post, you heard him." "I heard him," Marsh said. For me, for eels, for a sewage boat in the wrong light, I put my face in my hands. "It's not worth it. Let them take it down. I'll go to the stair. I've been in worse places than a stair." And then Sergeant Marsh did the only thing in the whole long morning that I would call gentle, and it was barely that. He did not leave his post. He did not come and put a hand on my shoulder. He stood exactly where he stood, eyes forward, and he spoke to the gallery in front of him as if I happened to be standing in the path of the words. "I had a brother who could draw," he said. "Younger than me, better than me at everything that didn't need a strong back. He could take a stub of charcoal and the back of a feed sack and give you the whole village, the dogs, the wheelwright, our mother at the line with her mouth full of pegs, give it you so true you'd laugh out loud to see it. Everyone said he had a gift. Everyone said it the way they say a thing they have no intention of doing anything about. He never had a wall, Master Aldwin. He never had a letter. There was no committee for boys like him. He went down the pit at 11 and he died in it at 19, the age you are now, and the only thing he ever made that anyone kept was a drawing of our mother on the back of a sack that I carried until it wore to nothing." He paused. His voice did not change at all, which was somehow how I knew what it cost him. "So when a man tells me there is a committee, and that the committee looked at a tannery boy's work and said, yes, this one has earned a wall, and then a man with keys comes to take it down for a name that earned nothing but being born to a fountain, I find I have a great deal of standing in me for that. More than my post is worth. A post is a thing they can give to anyone. A promise kept is rarer. I have spent my life guarding the king's house. I did not think the house would mind if, for one morning, I guarded the one thing it ought to be for. I did not trust myself to answer that, so I did the only thing I could think of. I got up off the ladder, and I went to my paintings, and I straightened mourning on the cut a 1/4 inch on its nail, because it had gone crooked when I'd nearly come down to take it myself, and I wanted it hanging true when they came to take it from me. It was hanging true when the door at the far end of the gallery opened. It was not within the hour. It was a good deal less. And Vane had not come back alone, and he had not come back with the controller. He had come back with more than he meant to, the way a man who throws a stone to start a small slide sometimes brings the whole hillside down. First through the door was a captain of the king's house, Marsh's own captain, a lean, weathered man named Captain Hale, with the same stillness in him that Marsh had, but older and harder, the stillness of a man who has used it. Behind him came Vane, talking with a paper in his hand, the order at last signed and folded, and behind Vane came Master Sedley in his green velvet, and behind all of them unhurried came a tall gray woman in the dark robes of high office whose chain I did not know but whose bearing I did not need to be told. When she came into a room, the room arranged itself around her. This was the marshal of the king's house, the Lady Aldrich Venn, who answered to no one in that building but the king. I learned afterward what had happened in the hour they were gone, and it is worth the telling, because it is the part Vane never understood. He had gone to wake the controller, who would have signed his order without reading it, because the controller signed everything Vane put in front of him. But Captain Hale, hearing from a runner that one of his sergeants was being threatened with dismissal over a hanging, had gone the other way up the chain to the marshal, not to complain, but because that is what the chain is for. You do not let a sergeant of the king's house be broken on a steward's word, without the marshal of the house knowing why. And the marshal, when she heard the words placed in writing and threatened with the chamberpot stare to make room for a name, had set down her pen and said, "I believe I will come and see this gallery for myself." So now they were all in the west gallery at once. The man with the keys, the agent in green, the captain, the marshal, and a tannery boy standing in front of 4 landscapes with his heart going like a drum. There, Vane was already pointing, already triumphant, already certain that the arrival of enough important people meant his version had won. There they are, Marshal, still up. The sergeant has defied a direct instruction from the understeward of the exhibition for the better part of 2 hours, embarrassed this house before Master Crew's representative, and refused to perform the plain duties of his post. I have the order here, signed by the controller. I ask that it be carried out at once, and that the matter of the sergeant be dealt with separately and severely. The marshal did not look at Vane. She looked at Marsh, who had come to attention so perfect it was like the gallery itself standing up. "Sergeant," she said, "you refused a written order from the understeward." "I refused a spoken one, Marshal," Marsh said. "There was no written order when I refused. I told the understeward I would require it in writing and signed, and I would carry it up my own chain of command, because a place painting should not come off a wall on any man's word alone. The written order is an hour old. My refusal is 2 hours old. I have not yet refused the paper, Marshal, because I have not yet been ordered by anyone above me to act on it. I am waiting, as a guard waits, for a lawful instruction from the proper authority. I believe you are the proper authority. I will do whatever you tell me to do." I want you to understand what that was, because at 19 I did not, and it took me years to. He had not refused to obey. He had refused to obey the wrong man, and he had said so in a way that put the whole question, cleanly and without a single insolent word, into the hands of the one person in the building who actually had the right to decide it. He had not won the argument. He had simply, patiently, for 2 hours, refused to let it be settled by anyone who had no business settling it, and held the wall intact long enough for the right person to walk through the door. That is what the stillness had been for. It was never stubbornness. It was a man keeping a door open with his own body until the proper authority could come through it. The marshal was quiet for a moment, then she turned to me. "You are the placed artist." "Pell Aldwin, Marshal," my voice cracked on my own name. "The 4 landscapes." The committee gave me the South Range. I have the letter. And because I had nothing else in the world to defend myself with, I unfolded it from against my heart and held it out, and my hand shook so that the paper trembled. She crossed the gallery and took it. She read it, all of it, slowly, which no one but Marsh had done all morning. I watched her eyes go down the lines. The committee's seal, the names of the men who had signed it, the words on merit and without reservation, and the South Range of the West Gallery, the spring exhibition. When she finished, she did not hand it back. She held it, and she turned and looked at my 4 paintings for the first time. She looked at them for a long time, longer than was comfortable. She looked at the marsh flats and the silver light. She looked at the tannery yard in the rain, and the old woman with her basket of eels. And she stopped, last and longest, in front of Morning on the Cut, the gray water, the night soil barge, the single heron on the lock gate, holding the whole dawn together with the dignity of a thing that has decided the place it stands is worthy. "Master Sedley," she said, without turning around, "come and tell me again which of these is wasted on the morning light." The green velvet did not answer at once. "Marshal, I only meant—" "You said mud and a sewage boat, I believe." The sergeant repeated it to me on the stair. He has a careful memory. She turned then, and her face was perfectly pleasant, which made it worse. "It is a working canal at first light, Master Sedley, painted by a man who has clearly stood on a great many cold towpaths at dawn, and the heron is the best argument for keeping going that I have seen rendered in paint in a long while. I should like it where the morning comes in. It seems to me to be about the morning coming in." She let that settle. "Where is Master Crewe?" Sedley swallowed. "He sends his regrets, Marshal. He is much engaged. He felt the triptych would speak for him." "It will have to." He did not trouble to come, did not trouble to submit to the committee, did not trouble to be judged alongside the men who did, and sent instead a representative to have a placed artist removed to the chamberpot stair, so that his unjudged work might have the best light in the house by right of his name and his late father's purse. The marshal's voice never rose. It only grew more exact, and the more exact it grew, the smaller Sedley became inside his beautiful coat. "Do you know what the King's spring exhibition is for, Master Sedley? It is the one wall in this kingdom a man cannot buy and cannot inherit. He can only earn it. It is the single place where a tannery boy and a crew stand in front of the same committee, and the work is looked at and not the name. That is the whole of its value. The day a name can walk in and take a wall a committee gave on merit, the exhibition is worth nothing at all. It becomes only another room where the rich hang the rich, and the kingdom has 100 of those already. I will not let it become the 101st on a Tuesday morning to spare Master Crewe the indignity of submitting his work like everyone else." Then she turned to Master Corvin Vane, and the gallery seemed to hold its breath, and so did I. "You gave a spoken order to take down a placed painting," she said. "When the sergeant required it in writing, as he had every right to, you threatened him with dismissal and the river gate. When that failed, you went not to me, who could have settled it in a sentence, but to the controller, who you knew would sign without reading, because you did not want it settled. You wanted it done before anyone with the authority to ask why could ask why. That is not the conduct of a steward of the king's house. That is the conduct of a man using the house's keys for a friend's convenience and calling it the house's business." She held out her hand. "The order, please." Vane's face had gone the gray of old ash. He gave her the paper. She did not tear it dramatically. She simply folded it back along its creases and put it into her own sleeve, the way you pocket a thing you intend to deal with later and at length. "It will be looked into," she said, and those 4 mild words frightened Vane more than any shouting could have, because they meant the morning was not the end of it for him. It was the beginning. The hanging will stand as the committee placed it. Master Aldwin's 4 landscapes remain on the South Range of the West Gallery. Master Crewe's triptych may be offered to the committee for the autumn show, where it will be judged alongside everyone else's, on its merits, by men who will look at the work and not the fountain. If Master Crewe finds that beneath him, He is welcome to hang it in his own drawing room, where, I am given to understand, the light is excellent." Sedley opened his mouth. The marshal looked at him once, and he closed it and bowed, and that was the end of Master Halloran Crewe in the king's house that spring. I should have felt triumphant. Mostly I felt as if a great wave had gone over me and set me back down on the same spot, shaking. I looked at my 4 paintings on the wall, still up, still mine, hanging in the south light where the committee had placed them, and I could not quite make myself believe they would still be there in an hour. But the marshal was not finished, and what she did next is the part I have carried for the rest of my life. She turned to Captain Hale. "Your sergeant refused an unlawful order, required the lawful one in writing, kept the chain of command intact, and held a placed painting on its wall for 2 hours against a man who outranked him in everything but the right of it. He did not raise his voice. He did not raise his hand. He did not so much as touch the rifle. He simply would not let the house break its own promise quietly, on no one's signature. Captain, is that not exactly what the post is for?" "It is, Marshal," Captain Hale said. "To the letter. Then there will be no dismissal and no river gate, and the threat of them will go into the looking into along with the rest." She looked at Marsh, and for just a moment the high office set itself aside and one disciplined person regarded another with something very like respect. "Sergeant Marsh, the house made this young man a promise in writing on merit. You kept it for us when a steward would have spent it. The house thanks you. Stand your post." "Marshal," said Marsh, and came back to attention, and that was all. But I saw the line of his shoulders change, very slightly, the way a man stands who has been told by the one person whose word counts that he was right to do the hardest thing he had done in 11 years. They left, then, the marshal, the captain, Vane with his ash-gray face, Sedley in his ruined green velvet, and the long gallery emptied of everyone who mattered to the great world. And it was just me again, and the sergeant at his door, and 4 paintings hanging in the south light exactly where they had been placed. The doors of the exhibition opened the next morning. I will not pretend the whole capital came to the South Range and wept over my eels. That is not how it goes, and a man who tells you it went like that is selling you something. Most people walked past the way most people always walk past, on their way to the portraits of people they recognized. But some stopped. A few came back twice. An old man who said he had worked a lime barge for 40 years stood in front of mourning on the cut for the length of time it takes to say a prayer, and when he left he touched the frame, just once, with 2 fingers, the way you touch a thing that has told the truth about your life when you had given up expecting anyone to. A woman bought the painting of the eel seller for her stairwell and asked could I do her own mother, who had sold cockles. A dealer left his card. It was not glory. It was a beginning, and a beginning was 11,000 miles more than a tannery boy had any right to expect, and I had it because a wall was kept. I sold all 4 before the show closed. With the money I bought frames, real frames and primed canvas, and a winter's worth of coal, and rent in a room that did not smell of the tannery, and I painted through that winter as I had never been able to paint when I was cold. The dealer's card became a second show, and the second a third, and I will not bore you with the climb. I climbed it. I am an old man now, and I have painted in rooms I could not have dreamed of from the back of that borrowed mule. But I have never painted anything truer than the heron on the lock gate, and I have never once forgotten that none of it, not one canvas, not one frame, not one warm winter, would have happened if the wall had come down at noon on the morning. A man with keys decided a famous name deserved my light. I went back to find Sergeant Marsh, years later, when I had a little to spare and a great deal to say. He had retired from the West Gallery by then. I found him in a small house near the river with a brother's worn-out drawing of an old woman framed on the wall above his chair. Framed at last, in good wood, the thing he had carried until it wore to nothing now carefully mounted behind glass, and I understood that he had had it copied and restored with the first money he could put to it, the way I had bought frames with mine. We were not so different, the soldier and the painter. We had both spent our lives trying to keep one true thing from being thrown away. I told him what his standing there had cost me to repay, which was everything, and what it had bought me, which was my whole life. He listened the way he had always listened, eyes level, giving back only what was needed. When I finished, he was quiet for a while. "I didn't keep your wall, Master Aldwin," he said at last. "Don't lay it on me. I kept the house's promise. The wall was always yours. The committee had already said so. All I did was decline to let one man unsay it on no one's signature for one morning until someone with the right to decide could decide." He looked at his brother's framed drawing. "A house is only worth standing in front of if its word means something. The day a guard lets a promise be quietly spent, because the man spending it is powerful and the man it was made to is poor, that is the day the post is just a costume. I had stood in that costume 11 years. I wasn't going to find out it had been a costume all along over your eels." The smallest thing moved at the corner of his mouth, the nearest he ever came to a smile. Besides, they were good eels. He has been gone some years now. I painted him once from memory, the way he stood at the door of the West Gallery with the rifle grounded and the morning light along the brass. Not because he would have wanted it, he would not have, but because the kingdom paints its kings and its generals and almost never paints the man who simply held the line one ordinary Tuesday when no one was watching and nothing but a promise was at stake. I hung it where the morning comes in. People ask me sometimes when they hear the story whether I was not afraid that day, a boy of 19 with nothing, standing in front of all that power. I tell them the truth. I was terrified, but I learned the thing I have built a life on, standing beside a man who was not, who knew exactly what holding would cost him and held anyway, not in a temper, not for glory, but because a wall had been promised to a poor boy on merit and the promise was true. A house had given its word. A guard simply would not let it be taken back.